Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our June GPHSA Legislative Committee meeting. I hope everyone's having a good June so far. It's just begun, so hopefully it'll be a good month for us. I do want to welcome Adam Dean. We have a new member. So welcome, Adam. I think I saw you on here earlier. I'm glad to have you on board and can't wait for you to get engaged and involved in all the things that we do in the legislative committee. So welcome aboard. And we have a special guest today. We have Mr. Matthew Wasatoski. I hope I said that right. He is the Director of Legislative Affairs for all of DHS. So I snagged him and said, please join us today. We would love to hear what legislators do in between sessions. He's very well versed. I'll let him introduce himself and his background. But Miss Susan Boatwright was going to be with us today, but she is en route. So she's not going to be able to give us a legislation session update. So Matt, if it's okay with you, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to quit sharing my screen while you're talking so that we can see you.
All right.
So welcome. So how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I'm glad that the weather has finally turned to hot. I like hot. I don't deal very well with the cold, but I appreciate that that introduction. Yes, my name is, and you did great with my name, by the way.
Yay!
Very Southern. My name is Matt Wasatoski. As Vicki said, I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for DHS. I was born and raised in South Georgia. I'm from Albany, Georgia. My background before I got into the law is forestry. I went to UGA and I got an undergraduate in forestry, and I also have a master's degree in forestry. And I knew I was not done with my education. If there's something I like to learn, and I like being educated. And everything's about learning. And I thought I had learned enough about nature and business, and I didn't want to do any more statistics. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and I just sort of fell backwards into the law. And for a couple of years, I did general practice where I took small cases, personal injury, wills, trusts, and estates, real small things as I was cutting my teeth. And I got this opportunity. I used to work in the law library when I was at the law school as a circulation desk manager, and people used to always come up and talk to me all the time. And one of my things, so I talked to people, and I got this phone call, and it was from a guy who he would always come up and talk to me. He said, you've always been nice to me, and I know you like politics. Are you interested in being my counterpart in the House? And he was working for the Senate Judiciary Committee at the time. And I said, sure, why not? And he's like, well, send me the resume. And so I sent the resume, and it was sent to Chairman Golick. And Chairman Golick called me immediately. And he said, when I saw a lawyer with a forestry background, I just had to interview. And so the interview went really well. And so I sort of fell backwards into the whole politics thing. I was, quite honestly, I was a news junkie. I'm not so much of a news junkie anymore. I can't stand to watch it. I read all my news now. I fell into that trap that I think a lot of us do, that the federal government is really what controls, and that's not it. The state is what controls our day-to-day lives. And so when I got up to, I was working for non-civil, the Judiciary Committee, which deals with the criminal code. And I started realizing just how much it affected everything. And then Rich was generous enough to get it, make my position full-time. And so I ended up working for juvenile justice as well, and also regulated industries. And so the two chairmen I had for non-civil over my 11 years being there, Rich Golick and Chuck Estration. For juvenile justice, it was Tom Weldon. I don't know if any of y'all remember him. Mandy Ballinger. And then for regulated industries, it was Howard Maxwell and Alan Powell. And regulated industries was probably my least favorite of the committees I worked for. A lot of people would say it's the fun committee. It deals with anything regulated, so alcohol, tobacco, fireworks. We worked on casinos, and also I was involved in medical marijuana since the beginning, and I've sat through days and days of testimony with that. And so that's where my background is. And I know why I'm here is, what are they doing now? This is an election year, and so our laws are governed by, our election laws are governed by the federal government. And so we have a short session, and anytime there's an election year, they try to crunch down the session as quick as they can so they can get out and start running, at the primaries, because the primaries come pretty quick. And if you are in office, if you are an incumbent, you cannot raise money during session, but your opponents can. And so that's sort of the impetus for them to get out. And it also depends, because it's an election year, there's differences between the rank and file members, leadership, the majority, minority, and then the chairman. And the chairman are, for the House, always part of, the leadership. What they do right now is, if they have an opponent, they're running scared. There's less policy work on an election year. They got to raise money to campaign. And one thing that's interesting that a lot of people that might not necessarily know is that when I was in state, when I was working for the House, the staffers for the assemblymen can actually work on the campaigns. And so I worked on Rich Golick's campaign for a couple years, so long as you don't do it during business hours. And I mean, pretty much I just talked with him over strategy, and I basically put out all the signs. So, and I put it on my resume. So also in this type of year, you'll see a lot of study committees getting dropped. You'll see a lot of study committees, because that's how, I'm doing this for my constituents, but you'll see very little study committees actually get acted on, during the election year. The ones that'll probably get chaired will be by incumbents that are either very solid where they stand, or they're not getting run against. And the study committees, the decision is made by either the lieutenant governor or the speaker of the House. Let's see. So right now, not only are they soliciting funds, they're going out and they're campaigning, they're knocking on doors, but they're also soliciting funds from leadership. And that's also on the minority and majority side. So the speaker has, a chest of money that he divvies out. The minority leader has a chest of money that they divvy out. And that's how, a lot of times, that's how you gain, loyalty and things like that. And you have to pay the party. Let's see. And the policy work that is being done right now is probably being done by leadership. And they're working with the chairman to set up the policy goals for this coming up session. And not just that, it's not so narrow-sighted. A lot of the plans are years in the making. In fact, some of the, even though you may have very, very good ideas, you may never ever see it come to fruition. I was in meetings in non-civil, never publicized, not going to tell you what it was, but we met on good policy for 8 years in between sessions, and we never got the bill out because the timing was just not right, could not be done. And so there's a lot of considerations like that to be taken into consideration. Timing has a lot to do with it, dealing with, negotiating with the other side, and then negotiating with you, the give and take. Sometimes things are just not ready to hit prime time. Let's see. So they'll also come up with different legislation in between the sessions. And so either that'll come from the news, It'll come from their constituents. It'll come from issues that they have. I mean, how oftentimes have I talked to a legislator that says, you know, I was sitting in the bar and someone said this to me, or, you know, actually one that's very common is I was getting my hair cut or in the hairdresser and they talked about this issue. Can we dig down on it? And oftentimes, you know, if it's a good idea, leadership kind of knows what's going to get through. And so anytime you hear me in the future, if I say something has legs, that means it's a good idea and it's probably going to move. Let's see. What else? Another thing that's very interesting to me for being there for more than 10 years is how oftentimes you see the same ideas sort of bubble back up every 2 years. And you often see with bad ideas. And so the institutional knowledge of, you know, the chairman and membership is extremely important because, and also staff, because you know, I saw, you know, you would see things that come up, you know, 8 years ago and be like, well, I know why we didn't do that 8 years ago. And that still applies. If any of you know Chairman Powell, he's a master at coming in at the last minute in a meeting and sitting down and leaning back. Oh, yeah, I remember when we did 20 years ago, 15, we revisited it in 10, and he'll go through the complete legislative history of it. And it's just very interesting, you know, how the wheels of government revolve and things sort of bubble up time and time again. And really, most of those are bad ideas. Some of the good ideas you just can't do, just, you know, just because of politics. So I think that's probably pretty much what they're doing right now. I was going to try to, the timing right now, because it was so close to Memorial Day and then the primaries, and I couldn't get the legislators, a handful of them that I wanted to get. So I apologize for that. And if you invite me again, perhaps I'll be able to bring one of them or be able to speak again. But I'm happy to field any questions.
Well, that would be great. So when you say leadership, who exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about DHS leadership? Are you talking about governmental leadership?
I'm talking about governmental leadership. I was just talking simply about the General Assembly,
Okay.
not what we're doing at DHS. No, leadership would be, you know, your majority leader, your minority leader, both whips, you know, in the House and even across the state. I mean, the speaker is a very, very powerful position, probably more so than lieutenant governor. You know, rivaling, I mean, there's an argument to be said that the speaker is perhaps more powerful than the governor. And that's sort of our system of government that we have here in the South. There's a good delineation between the way we do things here in the South and the way they do things in the North. In the South, we are much more legislative based. So it's the assembly and it's the leadership on the ground. The governor does not have as many powers as they end up having up north. One of it is because of weather systems. And so they have to, you know, do sanitation, cleaning up the city during a snowstorm. And so they have to have a little bit more executive powers. And, you know, we did have Speaker Murphy that we had for almost 30 years here. He ended up wrestling a lot of the power away from the governor, and Zell Miller ended up bringing a lot of it back, or some of it. But no, leadership, I was just talking about the assembly.
Okay. And then when you said that they divvy up money, where does the money come from? Is it like a fund that's set aside?
It would be their own campaign chest. And so since they're always fundraising, so you'd have, let's say you have, you know, a representative in Buckhead, where they can fundraise and they can make a tremendous amount of money, and they have a friend in South Georgia who doesn't have that sort of money base. He can open up his war chest and he can give it, or she can give it to the other person's campaign.
And I suppose it's tracked and what everything.
Oh yeah.
It'd have to be, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in fact, when I worked for Rich Golick's campaign, I mean, he had to, he had to list all that out, and he paid me out of his campaign funds. So, that, like I said, that was, I just basically hung up signs for him. He was too smart for me to, really help him out.
So would you say on legislating issues, what gains the most momentum? Is it like the loudest voices? Is it the
Oh,
more constituents talk about it, or is it, what's the best way? Like if we have something that we really want to advocate for, I mean, what's the best vehicle to use for that? I mean,
that is a very interesting, that's a good question.
thank you. I like your cat, by the way. She's having a good time. Or
Yeah,
he. It's above you.
yeah.
It's above you.
And there's one over here too.
Oh.
I think the best way to do it, what you do not want to do is bother the assembly person's staff. You don't want to bother the admin. You don't
So you don't want to
blow
like
up
ring their
phone.
phone off the hook and
You don't want to do that. There's nothing that pisses off the office more than that. Guarantee. I mean, it's sort of like, when we did abortion, I remember it was my second year we did abortion and non-civil, and you talk about blowing up the phones.
Oh yeah.
There was that, and then there was animal rights, which we did about my 6th year, blowing up the phones. I mean, and I remember Chairman Golden, never again. It's like medical marijuana. We had people calling our office for 8 years wanting to grow marijuana in their backyard, and how could they do that? I think the best way to do it is to sit down with a member that you trust and you get along with, put forth the idea, and then work with them on who else you can bring on board as far as membership, and then maybe get the advocacy side on board too. But blowing up the phones is never a good idea.
What about email?
Blowing up emails is not a good idea, but I would say if you're going to email, don't do it like a big group, like, one after the other, that's all pretty much saying the same thing. The good
Specific,
chairman
make
and the
it
good people in
personal.
charge. That's right. You just need one, and, maybe have a follow-up, and that's how they pay attention to it. If it's all blowing up and it's, sort of like, the boilerplate issue, that goes in the trash.
Mm.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Certain.
Lobby. We're here to support DFAC staff, and we're here to support that don't get paid enough to do the work that they do. We're here to protect children and those kinds of things. We need enough people in these positions across the state to make sure our children are safe. So is a lobby, should we be looking to try to raise enough money to get a lobbyist for the legislature to pay attention to our concerns? As Vicky is trying to say, we want to know the most effective way to get our voice heard and get results.
Well, I think that the governor has, rightly so. I mean, it's been an issue with all of the agencies with money and people, honestly, not getting their fair share, where the rubber meets the road. Being the director of legislative affairs, I'm essentially the chief lobbyist for DHS. So, if there are issues that you want to bring up, or you have ideas or things like that, my door is always open, and I'm perfectly happy to talk about anything. But there are certain lobbying organizations that are very good and they're very reputable. The ones who have long-standing, deep ties, and their lobbyists are deeply tied in the organization and also in the issue, and they've been involved in the issue for a long period of time, they're good to bring on board too. Partnerships are what make the wheels of government turn. As a first step, the best thing to do would be probably, if we're talking about DHS, if there's an idea, I would say bring it to me, and then, we will vet it. I will talk to the appropriate people, and, we'll see if we can make it happen. But it's all about partnerships and trust, and also friendship. A good lobbyist is actually friends. It's more of a friendship than a business relationship with the people that they're lobbying. I've noticed most effective ones are that.
And I know Miss
Hey.
Susan, I know
Hey,
you
it's
talked,
Susan.
yes, I was going to ask you to just chime in.
I'm sorry, I'm not there on
It's
camera.
okay.
We went out of town. But Miss Meredith is a board member, Matt, and she is part of the board association, and they have worked really hard to try to carry the issues and to support that legislation that proposed the $5,000 last year, and then the pay increase for this year. And one of the things we had, so the GPHSA director, myself, also a lobbyist, but to your point, it's required of the job to register as a lobbyist, but I'm not in friendship, and I have not worked at the Capitol. I know my own legislators, and I know some from when I was the communications director, but one of the ideas we had tossed around was to contract with a lobbying firm this was before the pay raise legislation was proposed. This was, when we were gathering information last year about what we wanted to try to tackle. And of course, we were so excited to see the pay raise and wanted to support it in every way we could. And so what we did was gather those anecdotal stories about how the not passing the legislation to support the amended budget and the FY23 budget was impacting staff, the hardships they were facing. And I passed those along to you and Kevin, and just, in case you needed a story, a staff story, a personal story, because that was what our thinking was, that
That's right.
a personal story in your back pocket is going to be the way to talk about this. And then another thing that happened that was just a blessing for us is the former, I'm going to get her title wrong because they changed after I retired, but Carol Christopher, who was at the assistant director level at DFACS, she had retired. She's married to a legislator, and she was at the Capitol anyway. And we were talking one day, and I said, well, would you be boots on the ground for us and let me know, if there's somebody that needs some information about how things are impacting staff. Of course, we wouldn't go rogue. We would stay in touch with you. And but these stories that we gathered, I wanted her to have them as well. And so we and she wouldn't take any money for it. I'm going to try to pay her to do it next year because she's already there and she can tell me when something's happening. And, but we ended up being in really great shape, having some inside knowledge. And she also had the opportunity, just being out at dinner with some various legislators, and just because she's the wife of one, to speak to what our position was on really needing the support for those pay raises. I think it worked well for us. I think that's the direction we'll go in next year rather than a lobbyist, because she has those relationships. She has those natural opportunities. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if you thought that was the right direction, or you had any input on that.
My input would be this. Not knowing, the more intimate, I think that's a fantastic method of delivering your message. I think that's probably more effective than, just hiring your general lobbyist. Just thinking about it, someone who just happens to have the opportunity and has sort of a built-in relationship and things like that. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Okay, well, good. That makes me feel better because we were really kind of going down that path just because we needed the relationships. That's what we kept talking about is
That's
we
right.
need somebody that has those relationships. Not that you don't. You absolutely you do, Kevin. Y'all have been so good to us, and we are so appreciative. But the more the merrier is what we
Yeah.
were thinking. And
Yeah,
so
and you know, especially like a white, a spouse of somebody in the assembly, they're going to know the most inside baseball. They will be able to hopefully, work their relationships and do it in a way that is respectful. A lot of these, lobbying, like I said, blowing up the emails, blowing up the phones, that is not effective lobbying. That really doesn't work. At least, in my experience. I just say that in all the offices I've worked in the Capitol. That is one way to probably surefire scuttle whatever goes on. But having like I said, you're right. It's all about the relationships, being respectful, and also being able to hear no and say, well, quite frankly, I disagree, but that's okay. And come and revisit it again, rather than getting mad and, well, you're just an idiot, for not listening to me. That doesn't work.
And I know relationships are so important because Senator, or not Senator, Chairperson, gosh, her name just escaped me, Katie Dempsey.
Katie Dempsey,
Yes.
yeah.
She has been so involved in lobbying and being a part of DHS. She was there that day we had the State of Hope, the roadshow.
Yeah.
And so I think, if we could just build those relationships with the legislators and let them come see the work that we're doing and understand that we are losing great people because we can't pay them what the private sectors can pay.
That's right.
And our children and our families are the ones that are suffering because we don't have enough workers to really adequately serve our families. And the ones that are here are so overloaded, and caseloads are high because of that. And we're like, what else can we do? Who can we get involved? Where can we push and advocate? Not push, no, I don't mean aggressively. I just mean get our story told. Let them feel the impact, see the impact of what it's having on our families, because we had the massive exodus.
Right.
It's going to take a long time to recover from that.
You're right.
And we're in the hiring frenzy process, but my goodness, we can't even attract quality people because we don't have the benefits package that anybody's interested in. And we'll even go as far as get them interviewed. They'll accept the position. And then even before orientation, they're notifying us that they've accepted another position with someone else. And it's like, it's a no-win situation. And until this gets fixed, we're going to continue having this issue, and we don't know what else to do. It's like we are beating the drum as loud as we can for whoever will listen.
Yeah.
And we're just,
Unfortunately, this problem is affecting all the agencies.
It is.
We haven't kept up, the salaries, commensurate with, with the qualifications you need just to do it. I mean, when you are, and I appreciated the story Susan gave me because I used quite a few of them. But when you're dealing with competing against Hobby Lobby for a 40-hour-a-week job, you're going to go ahead and make $8,000 more with benefits.
Yes.
Than in a state agency helping children.
Yes.
And overworked, as you said. Yeah.
And they're even throwing education in there. They're throwing bonuses.
That's right. Yeah. We'll send you to college if you come to work for us.
I mean, and we just can't, we'll never be able to compete with that. And we just don't know. So GPHSA is all about advocating for our staff. And
right.
so we're just like reaching
Matt,
out to
I'm
anybody
sorry,
that'll
Vicky.
listen. I'm sorry, go ahead, Susan.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was, you
You're
had brought up a
fine.
good point about how can we advocate? It made me think to ask Matt, as we move forward, certainly we can collect all of the content that you need from frontline employees. That's one of the great things about GPHSA, is that it's really the face of the public sees mostly the people, the members of GPHSA when they interact with the agency. But what can we do to help you in your agenda? And you may not know right now, but please be thinking about what kind of information can we get for you from our members that would help you be equipped for what you need to do and the conversations you need to have.
You know, within DHS right now, we're setting up our agenda not only for next session, but, you know, they'll be planning for, you know, a long term. You know, I really appreciate that. And, you know, that's something, you know, I definitely appreciate it. And, you know, it's something I will definitely think about. You know, but I do know this, that the issue about salaries and retention of employees, I mean, we're, you know, if there's at times, you know, I've described it as, you know, I feel like, you know, we're all in this boat and we're bailing it out just as fast as it's picking up the water. When we're talking about, you know, employee retention and having, you know, the payment and things like that, you know, that's something certainly that's going to be foremost on our mind. And hopefully, you know, hopefully we'll be able to get more money for our workers. But no, I'll definitely think about that. And, you know, I'll certainly circle up, you know, once we've sort of nailed down next session's agenda. But no, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and the ones we are retaining, you know, they're reaching burnout like we were talking about, and they're going out on FMLA.
Yep.
So we're bleeding, like you said, faster than we can wrap a thing around it. So, but yeah, anything we can do to help, because we have access to pull any information that you need. We can run reports. We can, even in our Region 3, we did a report because we wanted to know from just, you know, last January on the staff, how long were they staying before they left? And there was some that, you know, from 2 months, they'd be here 2 months, or just after training, and right after training, they're hanging up their tool belt to one day. One just worked a couple of days and she left after orientation. It's just, so yeah, we can get any kind of data that you need to kind of help, you know, support whatever things that you need. So just
Yeah, absolutely.
let Susan know, or let me know, any of us. We are happy. We are more than happy to get that together for you.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to listen, and, you know, I'm more than happy to advocate on this particular issue because it is so important.
And I would love to, maybe on maybe not a super regular basis, but I know we've tried to schedule legislators receptions for the past couple of years, but we weren't able to get together to do that in person. But maybe we can start inviting a legislator to either one of our GPHSA meetings, some of our committee member meetings, you know, something to see, you know, what all we're involved in and how we're advocating, and just to listen what all is going on and what all kind of work we're doing. I think that would be awesome if we could maybe start putting those feelers out to see who might be interested in the legislators to join us from time to time.
Certainly.
Even just a question and answer, or just a meet and greet, or just, you know, whatever. So
Yeah.
Who else has questions? I know we have a pretty good group here. I know somebody has a question for Matthew. You can either come off mute or type it in chat.
Clearly, I was very thorough.
I know, right? Great job.
I have a question. I just couldn't figure out how to come off of mute. This is This is Tina Webb Trotman. I guess I'm start my video. Okay, I got it now. I am a admin with right from the start Medicaid. And my question was, I was just wondering, just listening to, what you all were going back and forth. And I was just wondering, do you all ever have like sessions where you actually hear from the employees? Where, you have maybe like you're listening to us now, but do you all have anything as a whole where you kind of listen to, like, I guess the views and maybe the opinions and like I guess really hear from like the heart of the employees, where sometimes it can kind of feel where the people that are making the decisions are just kind of like making the decisions sometimes and kind of, don't really know like how we feel, or maybe take our, I guess our opinion or suggestions, in consideration, I would say. So I was just wondering, is there ever times where like employees are maybe invited to kind of just hear from the perspective of the people who actually are doing a job, or have it felt?
I know that, on the road shows and things like that, I mean, we do, and I know this for a fact, Commissioner Brose wants to know everything that's going on, and she appreciates every piece of knowledge that she gets. And she's extremely sharp. But no, things filter up to the top. Yeah, sometimes at the top, you're right. You get a little, you don't hear it directly from the ground, right? Because it gets filtered as on your way up. But I think that leadership does. I know when I go around to places, I love talking with people on the ground. And when I hear stories, I relate it to the top. I run issues up the flagpole that need to be run up the flagpole. But as far as like a general town hall thing where, it's general grievances from staff, not really. I mean, I do know that, our HR department is good, and we do hear from the rank and file. I think that Commissioner Brose, every opportunity she gets, she tries to hear from the rank and file. But as far as a formal process, I don't think there's really a formal process, other than, your natural channels. And then when you're going around the state, visiting all the different facilities, what you hear on the ground.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But Tina, that's not to say that we couldn't gather information from our regions and our counties and filter it up and send it up. Here's what's on our mind.
I think that's a
kind of thing.
fantastic idea. And
I mean,
if you
that's
come
a
up with a
way to-
document like that, the commissioner will read it and she'll remember all of it.
Wow.
It's
Insane.
she's sharp. And I worked with Stacey Abrams when I was on non-civil for, when she was minority leader. Rich Golick too, who's also a genius. No, she's smart.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Janidra. Can you hear me?
Hey,
Yes.
Janidra. Yes, come on.
Sorry, I am riding from one office to another, so I apologize for the background noise. So how I essentially got started in this committee was there was a request to look at I guess salaries in other states in reference to OFI. And I apologize. I am a deputy manager currently for one of our OFI districts. And so I often wonder, do we look at that perspective? Was that a good idea for us to collab and say, this is what other states are paying their case managers, this is what other states are paying, to compare to other states. Now I know, of course, demographics and things like that make a difference in salaries. However, it seems like sometimes just driving, I'll just say for me, 30 minutes to another state and getting paid sometimes $20,000 more is better or more effective than it is to say where we currently are in this particular state. So do we look at those things? Is it important to know the job functions of what we do? I think sometimes it almost can appear that sometimes that maybe the disconnect is we may feel, let me say that, we may feel that what we do doesn't always matter, while we know essentially that it really does matter. And so just knowing those, keeping those updated job listings and those functionality of what we do on a day-to-day basis, are those things beneficial for our legislators? I guess is my question.
I mean, I definitely think so. Your point bringing up what other states are paying their employees. Yes, we look at that. I mean, we pour through those sorts of things, sort of like good policy from other states, regarding, children or adoption or any policy. We look at what other states are doing and we take that into consideration when we make our decisions. No, that's a fantastic thing to compile the information on and, let people know what's going on, in other states. And I do know, we are lagging behind, for as economically strong as we are lagging behind in some areas as far as, paying our state employees. And I think that's going to be a continuing issue that we're going to be dealing with for, several years at least, if not forever.
And I hope at some point they'll also look at the job descriptions and compare them to the actual tasks that are being done, because a lot of it is really so outdated that the job descriptions do not come anywhere close to matching up with what the work is actually being done.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to
Mhm,
compare
very
what
true.
compensation needs to be when there's this many tasks on the job description, which is being compensated, the compensation is showing, but
But
it's
you got
this many,
that.
yes, but it's
That's
this
it.
many, and you're doing it on a higher level.
Yes.
And so there's no way to compare and say, well, you need to have a market analysis of what, because the jobs don't line up. Even when I tried to do a job analysis, a market analysis of jobs in the admin support arena, the tasks didn't match up from state to state, from industry to industry, as far as, because ours were more almost technical because of the things that we were doing versus administrative. We weren't just doing filing and typing memos.
That's
I mean,
right.
seriously.
That's
And-
right. I know.
So there's just a lot of discrepancies that there's a lot of things that really need to be looked at. I know that's not something we can hash out here, but
I think that's a fine point to update. We need
it's
to
needed.
I do know one of the commissioners' big thing is bringing our technology up to this century, and bringing, updating things that haven't been updated and they've been neglected for a long period of time. No, I think that's a fantastic thing, the job descriptions and actually updating it. I mean, because that justifies,
Yes.
that justifies why hey, you're speaking to the choir. I think everybody deserves a raise that works at DHS. But having a justification for that by saying, look, oh, by the way, they're making more money than us, but look at how much more we do. And that's the honest to God truth. Our employees do great things. Georgia workforce is good.
Mhm.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Any other questions? We're almost at the 2:00 hour, so
I have a question, just really
Sure.
quick. Back at the beginning of when you started talking, you said that something is determined by the Speaker of the House or the Lieutenant Governor.
The study
I'm-
committees.
I'm sorry,
The study committees.
study committees. Thank you.
Yes. And so, I know this year, if you looked at the list of study committees, it was just huge.
and what does a study committee do?
What is that?
What does a study committee do?
Oh, a study committee would do, so if we were to do a study committee on, for example, what we pay our employees at DHS, we would use everything that you're talking about, what they would do.
Okay, let's do that. Let's create one.
Well, should, was it?
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got
no,
excited.
I was thinking about who you get to carry that.
I don't know. We need to start calling. Let's burn their phones up. I'm just kidding.
No, but they would look at all those things. They look at, what other states are doing, the compensation, our work description. Like when we always had study committees on casinos, which, they labeled as resort destinations, but let's not be fooled by that. It's a casino. And so it was about economic impact, and we looked at all the other places around that allowed for gambling and destination resorts. And so, you try to compile all the information that you can compile to make good policy decisions. A lot of it is just, honestly, a lot of it is a dog and pony show, because even when they make the study committees, a lot of times they know it's predetermined the outcome before they even have the hearings. The hearings is sort of for show. Leadership knows what they're doing most of the time. They think they do.
I hear you. I hear you. Any other questions?
I hope that I've really enjoyed this, and I hope that I made sense, and I hope y'all enjoyed listening to me speak. And anytime, like I said, my door is always open.
It was
And,
wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you're busy like the rest of us, and we try to meet once a month, the first Wednesday of every month at 1:00 on Zoom. I think we're going to skip July's meeting because it falls right in the July 4th week holiday. So, and then we'll have our August meeting because we have our annual conference coming up in Savannah, August 29th through the 31st. So if you guys haven't registered for it, please get on that. Susan, do you have any other things before we close out that we need to let everybody know about? We may have lost her. She was traveling.
Well, this is the other Susan. I just wanted to say this is such a
Susan.
super. I'm the president-elect, and I just want to say this was a fantastic meeting, and thank you, Vicki, for orchestrating this. But
You're so
this has
welcome.
been so educational. So thank you for joining us, Matthew. This was great.
Well, I'm happy to be involved, and I was happy to do this. When Vicki approached me about it, I said absolutely.
I
I'm
know.
happy to talk.
We appreciate it so much because it's great to build those connections, those relationships, stay supportive partners, because we're all in this together. We all want
That's
the same
right.
things.
That's
And
right.
so whatever we can do to help make your job easier, to help, advocate for our staff and our family and our children, that's what it's all about. So you're welcome anytime. I'll send you an invitation, and
Please do.
anytime you can hop on, please do, because we'd love to have you anytime. And maybe one of these meetings that we have offsite, you can join and
Certainly.
just hang out with us and see what we do, and
Yeah, I
even
would
become a
say
member. We'd love to have you as a GPHSA member. So
that's something to think about. No, I'll see for one of the meetings down the way. I'll see about I think having Katie Dempsey at this would be
Mhm.
good, and so maybe I'll lobby her.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know she probably would agree to it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But no, I really do appreciate this, and I hope I didn't bore anybody.
No, you're wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been very informative. Any other questions? Going one last time. Fantastic meeting. Thanks, Matthew. And that's from Susan Cooper. All
Awesome.
right.
Thank y'all.
Well, thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
Indeed.
Bye.
My door's always open. If
Thank you,
ever need
Matt.
anything, please let me know.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.